When it comes to the graphics card market, and more specifically the latest GPUs, right now the situation is a total mess. Nvidia's latest RTX 40 series, aside from their top end, hasn't been desirable, and their lower end options are making that worse. With people looking at alternatives, it makes you wonder just what in the world is going on over at AMD. Their 7900 series didn't make the waves they expected they would, and if you were hoping that they would put things back on track for the mainstream market, I'd temper your expectations if I were you. Let's discuss that in this video. Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video. Hey, what is going on guys, Danny here, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you've all been doing well. If you are someone who's looking at buying a new graphics card right now, perhaps because you're building a new rig, or you're looking at upgrading from your previous gen model, and you want the latest, you'll find that the current options which are available from Nvidia aren't so attractive. Unless you're in the small minority that is willing to pay $1,600 for a graphics card, then you'll find other options such as the RTX 4080 and 4070 just don't seem worth it for the performance they're delivering and the price they're charging. This trend of delivering less performance for your money is unfortunately going to be continuing with the upcoming mainstream RTX 4060 Ti and 4060. A lot of people have simply become fed up. With the price hikes, gimping of specs, and performance, people aren't interested in buying new Nvidia GPUs as they were with previous generations. Now you might be thinking, that's alright, we still have another major player in the market, AMD and the Radeon Technologies group. Surely they're going to see the abhorrent mess of a market Nvidia has made and capitalize on that, right? Well, unfortunately, if you've been paying close attention to the market like I have, then your faith in AMD is probably dwindling. Now, to be clear, I don't want to give off this message that buying AMD right now isn't viable. In fact, compared to Nvidia's previous generation RTX 30 series and even their new cards, buying a new RX 6000 series GPU seems to be the way to go, especially if you don't care about things like ray tracing or upscaling tech and are after the bang for the buck when it comes to rasterization. Right now over on Amazon, you can find brand new RX 6950 XTs going for around $630, hence it's not that much more expensive than an RTX 4070, but actually trades blows with the more expensive RTX 4070 Ti. If not, it's faster if you can tune it. Along with that, it gives you 4 more gigabytes of VRAM, which seems to be a major concern for people these days. If you're looking for 4070-like performance, over on Newegg you'll find brand new 6800 XTs going for around $500 with their promo codes. If you're in for the more mainstream category, then I highly suggest picking up the 10GB RX 6700 non-XT. This GPU will give you 3060 Ti performance for way cheaper, and it's not even that much more expensive than the 6600 XTs, therefore it's a great option, and I'd highly suggest picking one up because this is a fairly limited model, so once they're sold out, they're gone. However, that is where the praising AMD part of this video comes to a close, because when it comes to their latest generation RX 7000 series, AMD has basically followed Nvidia in their footsteps, and I think that was perhaps the dumbest thing they could have done because they've dug themselves into this hole where their old parts look like amazing value and everyone will have them in the back of their minds when considering their newer models. The 7900 XT has already suffered this issue firsthand. When it was launched alongside the 7900 XTX, it had an MSRP of $899, which basically everyone in the tech press and community wrote off as an upsell tactic and just not being worth it considering the fact that it was hardly better than their previous gen flagship 6950 XT. Even AMD posted some of their own in-house benchmarks not too long ago, showing it less than 10% faster, but 30% more expensive. Now the price on the 7900 XT since then has dropped by a considerable amount. It's $100 cheaper than MSRP, making it a pretty good option against the similarly priced RTX 4070 Ti, but so has the price for the 6950 XT as I showed earlier. Now Nvidia has been gradually rolling out new models to join their RTX 40 series family, and typically you'd see AMD doing the same with previous generations, but this time it honestly feels like they have forgotten that other segments exist beside the ultra high-end enthusiast crowd, or have they? You see, I think because AMD decided to follow Nvidia on their pricing scheme, and also how they basically pulled the same tactic Nvidia tried to do with the RTX 4070 Ti, where it was originally called an RTX 4080 12GB, but then rebranded and had its price drop down slightly to make it more acceptable. They have been reluctant on releasing a 7800 XT or 7700 XT because they won't be that much faster than their previous generation counterparts and will also look like terrible value against some of the higher end models from the 6000 series now that they have been discounted so much. Now, we don't have much info on specs for the 7800 XT, but given what we already know about the 7900 XT and some recent information from ROCm patches, as well as rumors shared by Red Gaming Tech, the 7800X will supposedly have 60 compute units, 16GB of G6 memory, should have a similar clock speed range as the 7900 series, therefore making it roughly around the level of a 6950 XT, probably much more closer to a 6900 XT if anything, which means it really won't be that much faster than the 6800 XT. It'll be that plus 10% or so of performance, better ray tracing, better power efficiency, and newer tech like support for AV1 encoding, if you even care about that stuff. So that is where the dilemma comes in. Where do you price this RX 7800 XT at? If they launch it at $699, it could easily eat up potential sales from the 7900 XT, and on the flip side, then it'll look terrible compared to the 6950 XT. Even at $599, this card would be a tough sell. Like, I personally can't see any good spots where this card fits, where it doesn't look like a terrible buy compared to one of the previous generation models. This is why I was kind of upset as to how they handled RDNA 3. I believe that this RX 7900 XTX should have been called an RX 7800 XT and should have been sold at like $799, and the RX 7900 XT should have been called an RX 7800 and should have sold for like $649. At those prices, they would have been absolutely killing it in the GPU market. Some people get really riled up about what I just said in regards to the naming, but regardless, I think we can all agree that the 7900 XT and 7900 XTX should have been cheaper, and the only reason why they were released at those prices was simply because Nvidia was like, hey, we should just start charging mining prices ourselves, and then AMD was like, sounds good bros, let's do it. But AMD isn't Nvidia, and they don't have the same level of market dominance, market share as them, so why do they continue to act like they're equals is beyond me, as it hasn't worked out for them all too well. Had they appropriately priced the cards like I said, then they would not have been in this dilemma. Let me remind you guys that the previous generation RTX 3080 went up against the 6800 XT. So what really gives away the poor naming scheme in my opinion is the fact that the 7900 XTX only really ended up trading blows with the 4080 apart from a few outliers. They could have released this upcoming 60 compute unit 7800 XT as a 7700 XT and sold it for like $499. Again, this would have been another banger of a GPU because it would have given you 6900 XT level of performance at less than half the cost. A marketing move that Nvidia used when they initially launched Ampere, announcing the RTX 3070 at less than half the price of the 2080 Ti, but offering similar levels of performance, and people just lost their minds over that. Since we're talking about lower end segments, this is another area where they just seem to be following Nvidia's lead. The upcoming RX 7600 XT also looks like it'll be another GPU that will find itself in the same dilemma as the RX 7800 XT, offering performance that'll hardly be better than its predecessor, but come out at around the same price as when that GPU came out. Now, I recommend you guys check out this video from a channel called Vex. He recently made this video and does a pretty good job summarizing some of the recent leaks and information surrounding the 7600. Based on the info we have so far, the 7600, or if it'll be the XT model, is going to offer performance that'll be around an RX 6650 XT, which, don't get me wrong, for 1080p is still pretty darn good performance. Where we know AMD will screw this up is with their pricing model. Since they're also on an uptrend when it comes to GPU pricing this generation, the RX 7600 XT will probably have an MSRP of $400. Oh, and to make things worse, this card is going to be released with 8GB of VRAM. This was confirmed by some leaked EEC filings by an AIB. At the very least, they could have bumped up the memory buffer to 12GB. You can't post a picture like this on Twitter, bragging, and then go ahead and do the exact same thing you mocked your competitor for. It's like the time where Google mocked Apple for removing the headphone jack, and then proceeded to do the same thing the following year. And one thing Vex said in his video, which I totally agree with, is the fact that AMD knows how terrible the upcoming RTX 4060 and 4060 Ti will be, and decided, again, that instead of just taking this opportunity and capitalizing on it, they're instead going to be following their lead, but in a more inferior manner, which is just so puzzling to me. Despite both companies offering terrible options for their entry-level cards, the 4060 and 4060 Ti will outsell the 7600 and 7600 XT. There's going to be no way around it. At this point, you just have to wonder, what the hell does AMD even want? They clearly don't have any desire to compete, and they're releasing these terrible options that nobody is going to be interested in buying. They don't have a special gimmick that is exclusive to them. Nvidia is always first with those cool software features, whether it be like frame generation, DLSS, and if you're doing more than just gaming with your GPU, Nvidia is the way to go because of NVENC and CUDA. If Nvidia is struggling to move units right now, then you can bet AMD will find themselves in a spot far worse. This isn't Nvidia killing AMD, this is AMD killing AMD. If you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to check out the video description for cool links and ways to support the channel, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then consider subscribing, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.